Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to this R&D series on PBX Research. These are Ko-fi videos. It's for the Ko-fi page. I leave them unlocked in a public playlist on YouTube because I don't really see a reason to restrict them. But just know that the format's a little bit different, so these will be less polished. It's got lots of behind the scenes information on the processes that I use to look into this stuff, and the errors and everything are going to be there. So just so you know, it's long-winded and it's not the normal venue for videos that I make. At the end of these, I'm going to make a consolidated video that will be like the YouTube video. So if you don't want to see these long-form videos, just wait for the final video. There'll be like a PBX video. Quick recap, EVA polymer, total fail. So far we've tried two at the 6% fill load with a plasticizer. No luck. They don't consolidate. They're just crumbly. So EVA is awesome because it's, you're basically making plastic bonded high explosives out of, Michael's craft store glue sticks, which would be awesome. So I want to make sure that I give EVA a fair shot, in the glue stick form. So let's double the quantity and leave out the plasticizer just to determine, if this is going to consolidate enough at all or have any potential. At 12% on the EVA, we'll have 88% left for the fill, and that's about the minimum that you want to go on a fill anyway before you start getting performance degradation. So if we can't get anything out of 12% EVA, then it's probably not a good option. But we want to at least probe this a little bit more to be sure. Okay, PIB tried to dissolve it in toluene. It should dissolve in toluene. It didn't dissolve in toluene. It started to, and then it stopped. So I put some gasoline on there, just like an arbitrary amount, and the idea was that maybe there were fractions of some other hydrocarbons in the gasoline that would assist in breaking down the PIB. That wasn't the case. It actually broke down, the PIB broke down more the first day than the second day with gasoline. So gasoline didn't work. That's fine. That's, to be expected. A better performing solvent would be something like heptane. Which we don't have any on hand, actually. I did make an order. I made a solvent order from the Ko-fi fund. So I've already spent it all. Sorry, guys. So I've got a nice fat order of some solvents coming. And when those get here, we can use them for testing. But for now, let's try to make toluene work. So there's a big brain commenter made an observation. Hey, Dugan, your PIB are giant, massive chunks. Maybe you should try little bitty chunks. I think that's a smart man. So good idea. It makes sense. I kind of lay awake at night in bed thinking about this, like, why isn't the PIB dissolving, and coming up with theories. So my theory is that, I don't know, I think there's probably different molecular weights, just kind of homogeneously mixed together here in the PIB sample. So you got low molecular and high molecular weight PIB. I think the high weight is, that's probably less affected readily by toluene, and the lower molecular stuff is probably just, just immediately attacked and dissolves. So I think what's happening is it's beginning to dissolve from the outside, and then it gets small, and then there's, all the lower weight stuff is dissolved, and then what's left on the, this surface is just all the stuff that won't dissolve, the higher molecular weight, and it's making kind of like a protective barrier where the solvent can't attack the rest of it. So to do that, you would just need to add more solvent or add a bunch of heat or something like that. But we'll probably do a retest on the PIB and just cut it up into really fine pieces and then try to dissolve it in the same amount of toluene and see if it makes a difference. And then we've got polystyrene. So polystyrene looked really good. It's a glass hard PBX. So it's a different character, but it looked good. So my go-to filler for these is going to be Petin. I'm not going to do RDX or something just because I don't want to whip up a bunch of RDX just for these tests. But I can whip up some Petin. That's pretty easy. And then, thinking about this, last night I thought about this polystyrene, how cheap and available polystyrene is. It's a pretty simple PBX. So I was racking my brain thinking, hey, what explosive is going to be, on par with this in the same type of sport. And really what my brain kept landing on was R salt. So R salt is incompatible with most milk-cast carriers. You can, it'll deflagrate in TNT. It'll deflagrate in ANGC. Urbanski says that you can make a milk cast with it with picric acid. I sort of doubt that. I don't know how that, I just have trouble seeing how that would be a safe combination. Maybe so. But polystyrene, I could see that as being safe. Our melting temperature, that we're using with a solvent, it's well below the decomp temp of our salt. I don't see any reason off the top of my head of why our salt would interact with these to become molecularly destabilized and, decompose. So I think it's worth a shot. Cheap polystyrene, cheap R salt, cheap polymer bonded explosive. That's a win to me, right? So we'll try that at the end. Okay, and then so we've got for rat glue, right? We've got Catchmaster. So rat glue has been known about for a long time. It's been, people have been using rat glue for PBX on the internet for a long time. And, there's like the Scapa tape extraction of PIB. Catchmaster, it apparently isn't even PIB. So it's going to be some mixture of polymers. They're pretty soft and squishy. And I've been using it for a couple of years to make really dirty PBXs where you can just heat it and it turns into, a semi-mobile fluid. But I don't use PBX, so I've only done it like a couple of times, There is a guy who has a YouTube channel that's doing PBX formulations with Catchmaster, the same brand. He's using Petin and mineral oil, and he's having good success. His fills are a little low ratio, but it looks, pretty decent performance. And I know there's some guys in the server that also have used Catchmaster before, so I guess it is a popular option, and we'll just try to kind of nail down some formulation that works well. This polystyrene mix from the other day, I'm trying to clean out this pan and get this off. This is like, this is super solidified. Like I'm gonna have to use solvent just to take this off. Oh, there we go. I can get it off a little bit, but this is like fused to the glass. So this PBX mix with polystyrene is really, really durable. I think that's another point going for it, in any application where you would need this. This is way stronger than a milk cast, This is very strong, and that would be an advantage over milk cast for sure. Okay, so we've got 10 grams of the EVA in there. We're going to meter in our toluene. We're probably going to need more than, initially we're doing 10 grams of toluene to dissolve. This is twice as much. So it probably needs, I don't know. Well, we'll try 10 grams first. And if that doesn't work, then we'll move it up. 0.0. It's because I'm so good. See if that dissolves. It'll probably dissolve. If not, we'll add some more. Okay, here we go. EVA going on the back burner here. We're not doing any DOA. We're just going to try to break this stuff down in toluene, and then we're just going to try to do a dirty mix. So just to mention, when I'm saying a dirty mix, what I mean is that we're doing a modified, kind of abbreviated wet mixture method. There are a lot of different methods to produce PBXs, depending on the type of PBX that you're making. This is kind of like a expedient wet slurry method, what we've been doing. The correct method, or the industrial method, would be, for a wet method, you would have all of your plasticizers and plastics. You'd have those broken down in one vessel that's hot. You would typically have your explosive filler in water to desensitize it. So most of even Petin can detonate up to 20% water, so it needs to be drowned out. If you're doing, the actual method here, it's got to be drowned out with water, a significant quantity of water. And then that water's heated. So you heat the water beyond the point where it's going to drive off the solvent. And then you add the solvent to the filler with the water. And so the idea there is that, these don't mix. But the solvent is holding your plastics. So it's like plastic water droplets that get, rapidly mixed in a high-speed mixer. And then they're going to coat all the crystals that are not dissolving, right? Because the solvent that we're using is not the same solvent as what would be used for the filler. So the filler doesn't dissolve, the filler's in water. You drop in this solvent plastic mix, and it turns into water droplets and spins around at, a high RPM. Coats all the crystals. Then you drive off all the solvent with the hot water. It drives off. You pull it out, you drain it, and then you let it dry. And you get like a powder mix, and then you would press that. So that would be like the industrial method. just so that you understand. The water processing part of it is important because, right now we're just using flammable solvents, and if we're using explosive fillers, you can have like a pilot light or something set off the fumes for your solvent and then detonate your explosive. So it's a very hazardous procedure, and wet slurry adding in water is supposed to get around that and help with that. At the 10 gram EVA load, this is pretty thick, so I'm going to add in another 5 grams of toluenes. It'll be 15 grams total. Okay, we got 15 grams in there of solvent now. We're going to move on to begin the next test. I think we're going to try to break down some PIB. So we got the PIB all chopped up here. I don't know what the size of smaller than a Q-tip head, is the size. It's considerably smaller than what was attempted before, which is more like, I don't know what, large marbles or something. So we'll try this with toluene and see if it breaks down. I also adjusted the quantity. I was doing like 5 grams before, and I realized, I calculated out a mix here, and I realized I was going to have to put in 216 grams of filler, which is, I don't want to make that much, that's just wasteful. So we went down to 1.25 grams of PIB, and that'll give us, a filler of 50 grams, which is more reasonable. That's the charge weight I typically like to work in. So let's put some toluene in here and see if it breaks down. Okay, so I got 10 grams of toluene in here. That should be plenty to break this down. Like I said, the mass of PIB is only 1.25 grams, so we're way over. I'm going to leave out the DOA. We're just going to check if this is going to dissolve or not. Okay, we got it heating up over here. That looks like it's going to dissolve no problem. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I said that before, right? Okay, so EVA, it's breaking down. It's looking good. Normal. Temps are 66C. Then we've got the PIB over here. PIB is about 50C. It's climbing up. All right, so we've got everything mixing up right now. Let's begin the next test. We'll start setting up. So let's get this Catchmaster. I told you, remember, I told you that I've used Catchmaster for a long time. This is an oxidized can. It's been in the lab so long it's just completely turned to rust on the can itself, but this is actually a new can, so this hasn't been, I've maybe used this like once before. I don't know. Let's open it up. We'll look at it. It'll be interesting. We'll see what it looks like after, it's probably, I probably haven't messed with this in like a year. Let's knock the dust off this bad boy. Woo! Got some crumbs in there. Okay. So that's your Catchmaster bulk rat glue. Now this stuff is pretty sticky. So I've never found a good way, besides heating it. You would heat it and then pour it. That works really well. If you don't do that, you're going to be dealing with that right there. So that's pretty sticky. The only way, like those old honey dipping sticks, that's about the only way that I've found, if it's not heated, to really get it out, is to, honey dip a wooden stick and then twist it and then pull it out. And then, I'll cut it with scissors like that, and then you get a section of it. That's how I meter it out. Then you'd have to weigh this, of course, and then, change the mass if it's incorrect. Okay, we've got 2 hot plate stirrers going right now. I wish I had more. I broke 2 of them. I broke one on the RDX video. I broke one on one of the ETN videos, I think, which is too bad. So if we had 4, we could do 4 setups. And this is a great opportunity to plug my Ko-fi. If you want to support me, help me buy some more hot plates. I'd like to get, ideally, if I had 6 of them, we could do, 6 samples at one time, or, immediately after one after another, which would be great. That would be incredibly efficient. Where did this fly come from? So anyway, that link is, it's in the homepage, but it's like Ko-fi/Doug, I think is what it is. I tried to make it simple. While we're waiting on this, these 2 mixes to stir, and we've got the catch master out here. We'll go over some PBX math just to, I mean, we might as well. We'll just show you lots of detail here. So this is a composition, this box right here. This is a composition of what I want to attempt. So this is based off of a PIB mix, an alternative PIB mix for C4. So I want to try to get, approach C4 in terms of the fill loading, which is, pretty a lofty goal of 91%. Probably not realistic, but this is where we can start, and then we can go the opposite direction and bracket and find what's realistic. I'm assuming that we're not going to be able to get away with a 91%, but we want to, that would be ideal, so we want to attempt that first. Who knows? Maybe it'll work. I mean, we've got DOA going in here at 5.3%, which is, significant. So maybe that will affect it a lot more than, mineral oil. So anyway, let me just explain the math. So, I've got my percentages spec'd from this historic C4 composition. I'm implementing rat glue instead of actual PIB. I picked an arbitrary number, based off of the size and the, like the volumes of the beaker. So I'm using 5 grams is what I picked. That's actually going to probably be too big because, 5 grams, 91%. I mean, it's going to be, this is only 5 grams is only 2.1%. So 91% is going to be like it's going to be like 200 something grams probably, which is way too much filler. So we're going to break it down, but from there. But I'm just starting at 5 kind of arbitrarily. What I do is I put my rat glue at 5 grams right there. Here, let's zoom in. How I figure this math out, for my proportions here, I put the rat glue, 5 grams is what I want to start with here, but I write below that what the percentage is supposed to be. So it's supposed to be 2.1%, right? And I'm just going to go down the list. So DOA at 5.3, mineral oil at 1.6, and the filler at 91%. Then what you do is you bust out your calculator. I don't know where my calculator is. You bust out your calculator, and you're gonna go to your next reagent here for your PBX, the DOA. It's 5.3%, so we're just doing a simple cross multiplication. So we're gonna go 5.3 in the calculator, times, we go across 5 grams, times 5, divided by 2.1. Divided by 2.1 equals 12.61. So 12.61 grams is my DOA. And then I would just continue down the line doing this again, for mineral oil. It's only 1.6%. So what I'm going to do is, let's get it to where you can see it. You can just go 1.6 times. We're just skipping this because we already did DOA. And we're just going straight to the rat glue as our comparison. So 1.6 times 5 divided by 2.1. All right, so 3.81 grams, and so on and so forth down the line, and that's going to give you your proportions. So I just finished this out, and if you'll notice, the filler is 216.6 grams. That filler would be a high explosive material. When we get to the final test phase where we're actually making energetic materials here, we would be making a 216 gram charge. I mean, it'd be more than that. You'd have these other inert materials in here, but 216 grams of high explosive, which is a little bit too large for a test charge, right? We really want to be at 50 grams or under on a test charge. So I can look at this and I can say, well, what's a factor to 50? Well, it's about, approximately 4. So if I divide this entire thing, I just take these masses now, right here, 5 grams, 12.61 grams, 3.81 grams, 216.6 grams, just divide them all by 4. And write those down here, and then that will give you your proportions, correctly based off of only 5 divided by 4 is gonna be 1.25 grams. So it'll give you, based off of rat glue, 1.25 grams of rat glue. It'll give you a composition of everything else. And that should bring, the filler is going to get down to, it'll be like approximately 50 grams. I mean, it'll be more than 50 grams, but not much more. It'll be somewhere in the 50 gram range. of filler, which is appropriate for the size. Most of your, like hand grenades and things like that are going to be anywhere from 50 to 100 grams. So it's a pretty serious test charge. I don't like to go much lower than 50 grams because if you ever went to actual devices, if you were making munitions, if you're making drone dropping munitions and stuff, hand grenades, there's pretty much no instance that you would go under 50 grams for pretty much any explosive, like even like a really, ultra high explosive. So 50 grams is a good place to start for a realistic test, and that's PBX math for you. Okay, update on the PIB. This stuff is super sticky. It's definitely dissolving, but we're gonna need more solvent. So I'm gonna add some solvent here. And we're just gonna go another 15 grams of toluene. Here we go, 15 grams. Boom. 15 grams, a little bit over. 15.3, that's fine. Okay, we're gonna put it back on heat and stirring. Okay, so PIB looks good. It's still dissolving, it's stirring up. We're gonna let that heat up. We've got this EVA over here. It's pretty much done. Okay, so here's this EVA over here. It's ready to add in some filler, all right? So just to kind of explain this, so we're not going to be doing like a proper wet slurry PBX composition here. We're just going to be adding in filler to check, how bondable the EVA glue is going to be in a mass proportion of 88% filler to 12% polymer. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're just checking to see if this is like a viability check. We're just seeing if this is even going to be realistic, or if maybe we should abandon this and pay some more attention to some other PBXs. So there's no DOA in here. There is no that would make it even softer and disrupt molecular bonds even more. And the filler on this, we're just going to use sugar because I'm not going to waste melamine on this. So we're just going to use sugar. I've had some granular sugar sitting out since last night. So it was weighed last night and it was weighed today, and there's zero mass change, which is good because sugar is supposed to be really hygroscopic, which could potentially mess up these tests. But I think it's pretty much totally suitable if it can sit out overnight, for 24 hours. I mean, we're not going to be keeping these sugar cakes to do anything with them later. We're just inspecting them immediately and then discarding them. So sugar should be appropriate. Okay, so let's pull off heat. We'll take the stirrer out to try to get most of the globular material off here. Keep it in the jar. Oh man, that is thick at 10 grams. That is quite a thick polymer paste. Okay, there's some still on that stir, but it's pretty good. So I don't know, can you see that, how that looks? We're going to be adding in the filler now. We're going to be doing granular sugar. This is actually 73 grams of we got 73 grams of, don't worry about that, 73 grams of granular sugar. Okay, so let's just see what happens. We're just going to dump it in there and give it a dirty mix. Dirty mix here. Here we go. We'll put a little bit in there. Oh, yep. Quite easy to stir so far. Oh, wow. Much different consistency than the prior ones. I think this is going to be more usable. That would be interesting. We don't even have any DOA in here. All right, let's take it over to the mixing bowl and do some hand mixing now. We'll make sure we get everything out of here because we don't want to leave non-homogeneous material behind, especially at the bottom. That's going to have a substantial proportion of the polymer. Let's get that off. Okay, I'm just going to we're going to do some hand kneading here. Well, it's bound a lot better, I can tell you that. The granular sugar is really helping it disperse. You can feel it. I mean, if this were, yeah, I think this would be good to go. So I'm going to say that the properties were just that EVA content was too low. So maybe you need a VA content that's higher, and the glue sticks are they're not ideally high enough, but they're okay. I don't know. We'll see. Now that I'm squeezing this, I'm not sure. It might still be. We'll have to dry it out. We'll have to dry out the solvent and see how it consolidates. We're going to learn something here one way or another. I mean, that's way more consolidated than the prior test, if you haven't noticed. The other nice thing about granular sugar is that everything gets dispersed really well because they're so dense, you know, so you don't have to, you just do a little bit of mixing and it's pretty well dispersed. You've got a pretty homogeneous mix. And it's just a very rough coating of the crystals. You know, nothing like the effort that you would have to go through if you were actually making a PBX. Okay, so let's put this on heat and we'll see how it dries out the solvent and consolidates. Now, if you'll notice here, this is from the prior test right here. We've got the polystyrene. I'm going to have to completely soak this in some solvent to get that up because it's, you know, solidified like glass. So we're just leaving that there. We're going to work around it for now because I don't want to douse this thing in solvent. We're just going to try to get this dried out. So I'm going to try to keep it together so it's not so, you know, breaking apart and all that. So we'll just leave that there to dry out and we'll see what shakes out. Meanwhile, PIB is still going. It is struggling to dissolve, but it's nothing like those large masses from the previous test. So we'll just keep it going and see how realistic toluene is. Obviously, you know, heptane is going to be your huckleberry for breaking down PIB. That's kind of the classic solvent anyway. Okay, you're in for a treat because we're going to try to figure out how to meter out this rat glue, this Catchmaster. It's extremely sticky. So this is going to be difficult, I think. Our goal here is we want to get 1¼ grams. Actually, let me write this down. This is where, you know, what we were talking about earlier. We took, you know, first we did cross multiplication of comparative fractions to determine what our weight should be at the ratio, this percentage ratio, and then we're just dividing it all by 4. Because this is way too much filler, 216 grams. We want to aim for about 50 grams, so I said divided by 4. That's going to give us, you know, these proportions. So my rat glue is at 1¼ gram, DOA is at 3.155, the mineral oil 0.95 grams, and the filler is at 54 grams. Okay, now this is going to be funny because I feel like I'm like taking off my pants on camera trying to get this rat glue on here. We only needed 1¼ Like, I don't even know what this weighs. What do you think this weighs? I mean, that's heavy. That's got to be like a ton. All right, let's just cut off a piece. See, the bad thing about this rat glue is that this is, I mean, I cannot describe to you how much of a mess this is unless you just have your technique down. I mean, this gets completely disastrous if you have poor technique. I have no technique. I haven't even messed with this stuff in a year. And the last time I did, I'm doing, well, I think I pulled off last time, but before that, I used to just melt it. Oh, come on. Oh. I don't even know if you can see that. Okay, here I've got another stick. So I got a collection of sticks here. Oh my goodness. I definitely don't want to get it on my scale. Crying out loud, the foil stuck to my finger. Okay, there we go. 1.19. Okay, I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to adjust all my proportions to be 1.19 grams. That's fine. I feel like I dodged a bullet there, getting approximately close. So we'll adjust the proportions. It's going to be fine. That's what we're going to use. I adjusted all the proportions to this 1.19 gram of Catchmaster rat glue. If you'll notice, it's on a piece of aluminum foil. That's strategic. The purpose of that is that the aluminum foil is not reactive with the solvent. So my hope is, you know, because basically this rat glue is unhandleable. It's very difficult to meter out. That's probably the hardest part of using it. So I'm going to drop it with the foil into the beaker, add toluene solvent. Hopefully it'll break down with a stirrer and then remove the aluminum foil. Boop. We're going to do 10 grams of toluene. You know, we don't even know what the correct ratio of solvent is to the polymer. Look at that. You see what that says, my friend? 10.0.